Hello and welcome to today's episode of Authentic Achievements, where it's my absolute delight to be joined by the fabulous Sharissa Sebastian Deppen. Sharissa, welcome.
Thank you so much, Kim. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to our conversation, and as evidenced by our brief chat before we got started, we could get stuck in quite quickly. So before we do, let me share with the audience a little bit more about you, and my apologies for the fact Pudding the dog has decided to join in. So Sharissa is the CEO of Leadership Mastery Alliance, a company specialising in supporting introverted servant leaders who are women in corporate leadership. She's a leadership and executive coach with an MBA, an MSc in technology leadership, and her PCC certification from the International Coaching Federation, as well as being a Myers-Briggs certified practitioner. She's got 15 plus years of corporate leadership experience, in addition to coaching several Fortune 100 leaders and executives. She's a TEDx speaker and a TEDx speaker coach, an award-winning international keynote speaker, a writer for Forbes and the Huffington Post, and a member of the Forbes Coaches Council, a professor at Southeastern University, and an advisory board member at the University of South Florida. Her many years of experience, including helping leaders draw on their God-given strengths and abilities, see their value, and be able to bring out the best in themselves and others, all while having fun, being themselves, and not burning out. She's able to masterfully help them navigate their blind spots while thriving in their zone of genius to take their career and leadership to a level that has a significant impact on themselves, their teams, and their organizations. And her clients include leaders and executives from companies such as LinkedIn, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Twitter, Microsoft, Harper Studios, Bank of America, CNN, the United Nations, Intuit, Salesforce, BP, FedEx, Comcast, Deloitte, Accenture, Dr. Pepper, Victoria's Secrets, Warner Brothers, UK Bank, Coinbase, Nestle, Virgin, Mars, and many, many others. I mean, wow, Sharissa, what a journey. I don't even know where to start, but could you bring it to life a little bit for us?
Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing all of that. that was a lot. So thank you for taking the time to do that. But yes, to answer your question, it has been quite a journey. And so I started off I started off my career in technology, as your listeners probably know just from going through some of the information in my bio. So my undergrad degree is actually in software development. I started, in that space as a software developer, and then moved into technology leadership. But honestly, towards the end of my career, I started to really head towards burnout. So there were a lot of things that just weren't really working really well for me, weren't aligning. I felt a lot of stress, and I was a single mom at the time. So trying to juggle parenthood and then also trying to figure out, okay, how do I figure out my space at work so that it doesn't drain me as much as it did. And I really just struggled for a long time. And to be honest with you, when I got to that point, I was trying and struggling and trying to figure it out on my own. And I just kind of got to the end of myself. And my journey is very much a faith-based journey. And so at that point, I was like, okay, God, I know that you have something better for me. This is not the experience that I know you want for me in my life. So I'm just going to surrender and trust that, you're going to show me a better way to do this, a better way to be present for my daughter and be that mom that she needs, but also a better way for me to function in the world where I feel really good about and really clear on my purpose and what I'm supposed to be doing that's going to energize me rather than drain me and stress me out. And so that was the beginning process of me discovering coaching and then finding a coach that helped me to navigate that and help me figure out who I was. I had lost myself in that whole process of just trying to get through the day today. And I forgot about just reflecting on how I'm wired and how God created me to be, so that I could then figure out, okay, so what is the direction and the purpose for my life, and how can I do work in the world that is really going to have an impact, but also fulfill me and help me have that, continue to have the energy and all of that to be able to do what I do. And so that's how I ended up transitioning into coaching. And so I focus primarily on introverted servant leaders. One, because that is so much my journey, and I struggle so much with the introverted part of being a leader early on in my leadership journey. And so I had to do a lot of soul searching, a lot of praying to try to uncover and understand how I'm wired and my personality and my strengths and all of that, so that I could leverage that and really work with those things that make me unique, so that I can use that to help me be successful in the workplace. It took a long time for me to get there, and one of the biggest hang-ups, I think, in my career was constantly comparing myself to others and feeling good enough. And so of course that knocked down my confidence, and that just gave me a very uncomfortable experience in the early stages. And so once I went through that journey, and actually that's what I help our clients with today, is as introverts, is helping them really shine in the world while not giving up who they are, not trying to be somebody that they're not. And so the servant leader part of that comes because most of my clients, or a lot of people, are drawn into the work that we do because they just have a heart for others. They're very people focused in their leadership. They want to support other people. They want to help them in their career. They want to do whatever they can to be that encouragement or whatever it is that others need in order for them to excel and to thrive. And so that's why I combine the two. So it's introverted servant leaders who are just trying to do the best they can, but also they have specific challenges, unique challenges that they face in the workplace simply because they're not wired in the same way as extroverts, or there's certain things about their personality that can make it sometimes very challenging. Like I said before, it's easy to compare ourselves to others, but we really don't need to do that if we can figure out our strengths, the passions that we have, the purpose that we have, and then align all of that to get us on the path that we need to be on.
I love that, because we are all unique, aren't we? We all bring our own unique insights into the world, and very similarly, mine's definitely a faith-led journey, and you had to go in that journey inward. That was my kind of like biggest lesson. I tried to do everything externally to improve, to demonstrate that I could do things, but it wasn't until I went internally to really reflect, as you said, on what am I supposed to, what is my purpose, what am I supposed to be, and start to get rid of some of the labels that I had lived by. I'm also a single mum, so I'm a single mum, I'm a leader. I was like, all these nice labels that then meant that you felt safe because you were able to share with the world who you are, but actually you're not those things. They're just activities that you do. So how can you help with some practical steps on for the listeners out there that are introverted servant leaders, how can they start that journey back to themselves?
Oh, that's such a great question. And I think one of the things I want to just clarify, just for the purposes of we've been talking about introverts and then extroverts, and I know we'll be using those terms as we have the conversation, just to clarify what those are, or at least how I define them. There's lots of different ways to interpret that. But basically, the introvert, one of my favorite definitions of what an introvert is versus an extrovert is introverts are people that get their energy from being away from people. It's not that they don't like to interact or build relationships or connect with others, but they get their energy from being by themselves. And so when they are in those social settings, or even on a one-on-one basis, a lot of times, they'll get to the point where they just feel like, okay, I need to rest, I need to recharge that battery so I can get back out there. And so extroverts, on the other hand, tend to get their energy from being around people, so being in those social settings, and they get really energized by that. So simply, that's just the definition that I like to use. So when I'm referring to introvert and extrovert, hopefully that helps whoever's listening to get a sense for what I mean by that. But to come back to your question about how do you even get started with all of this? So in my coaching practice, what we do is we go through a process to help our clients understand what is their leadership zone of genius. And so when I talk about leadership zone of genius, I touched on some of these areas, but there's a lot of things that make that up. But it's basically, there's some identity work in that as well. So I love that you touched on that, right? It's very easy to lose ourselves in our titles or the roles that we play in the world, and that's really not, that's not the truth of who we are, right? The essence of who we are. Yes, there's roles that we play as a mom, as a leader, and things like that. But it's so important to get really clear on, at your core, who do you believe you are? And for me, that was very much biblically based, because like I said before, my journey was very much a faith journey. So I went back to, okay, who does God say I am? So that's part of understanding who you are. And then, the other aspects of that leadership zone of genius are things like your strengths, your past experiences. Like, what are you good at? What are the things that you enjoy doing? What are the things, the causes that you're really passionate about? Like the things that you care very deeply about. Maybe some of the things that keep you up at night, right? Like maybe there's other things in your world that you're like, that bothers me, that somebody is treated that way, or whatever it is. So there's your passions, your strengths, your experiences, the things that help you to be in that flow state, right? So where time just goes and you're doing certain activities or tasks that you just feel really good about, and the time can just go and you're just so absorbed in it. So understanding all of those things, because those are such critical pieces to the way you're wired, and just what makes you unique and what makes you valuable in the world. And so once you understand that, and you may, even that part of that might be that you uncover that you are an introvert. And so there's certain things about being an introvert that once you understand, you're then able to go in the world and function at your highest level, because you understand who you are, your true identity, and you live from that space. And you become just so much more confident, because you're like, oh my goodness, I'm clear now on who I am, what I bring to the table, the value add, the strengths that I bring, and the passion that I have, inside of me. I'm aligned with all of those things so that I can go out in the world and serve and add that value and help other people from a place where I'm first confident in who I am. So I would say that's definitely the first step. And if it can sound overwhelming, because there's a lot of pieces to that. So I would definitely encourage, if anyone is listening to me, to this interview right now, please get some help and support in this area. So coaches, a good coach can help you with this. So anyone that is equipped to be able to ask you the right questions to draw this, out of you, is going to be very helpful. I can tell you, even from my own experience, I still have coaches today, because they were so valuable in helping me to uncover things that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to uncover on my own. But as a very first little baby step, before you even do that, or if you're like, oh, you know what, I'm not really ready to invest in any of that, I don't know if that's for me, there's one simple exercise that you could do that I think is going to give you some really good insight if you're struggling with, okay, I don't even know what my strengths are. I don't really know, what comes across to other people, how am I perceived? It's simply, pick at least 5 people in your world. It could be people that you work with. It could be even just a former boss or colleague or whoever that is, friends, family. Pick at least 5 people and ask them, what are my strengths? What do you see as the value that I bring into the world? What do you appreciate about me? So questions like that, because I guarantee you're going to start to see some common threads in, how they describe you and things like that. And that's going to help give you some insight into how the world sees you, how the people closest to you see you. And so that's going to help you see, okay, here's some of my strengths, some of the things maybe you didn't even know or didn't recognize about yourself. So I would start there, because I think there's a sense of confidence that comes, right, when you start to see yourself through the lens of, oh my goodness, there's so many things about me that are valuable, right, that I can then take into the world. And when you're aware of it, it's a lot easier to then go into the world and then offer, lean into those areas of strength to be able to help others. So that's definitely how I would answer that question, like where to start. If you can figure that piece out and who you are and how you're wired, and also just be very aware of what gives you energy versus what drains you. It could be activities, it could be people, it could even be like places or things, whatever it is. Be very keenly aware of how you're showing up in the world and what kind of things, what even tasks that you're doing at work or whatever it is, what drains you and what gives you energy, because that's another piece to the puzzle. I could go on about a lot of different things. All of this makes up that leadership zone of genius. But to start with, I would say those 2 things. Focus on the strengths, and then focus on what brings you energy and what really, helps ignite that passion in you. And then also what are the things that drain you. And so from there, you can make some good conscious decisions about what to lean into and what to lean, away from.
I love that. It reminds me many years ago doing a similar exercise. So I had to go and speak to colleagues, friends, etc. What are the things that you see as my strengths, and what are the things where you see I get in my own way? Just to get an idea for those bits. And you're right, sometimes we are so disconnected to what they say. I mean, but when I did it, they came back and almost unanimously they said brave and fearless. And I was like, I live in fear every minute of every day. Fear that I was massively imposter syndrome at the time. And I was like, I don't understand. So I had to go and ask more clarifying questions. So tell me a bit more about that, because I don't see it. Now, I'd moved around the country. This is my 36th home since I left home.
Wow.
So I've moved a lot. And they said, that's brave and fearless. You will move places where you don't know anybody to do a job that, you're not convinced you can do. And I was like, well, I thought that was a bit flighty and a little bit stupid. Interestingly, they see it in a different way. And sometimes we aren't the best judge of ourselves, are we? Sometimes we do need somebody external to us to create that psychologically safe space for us to go and get the answers, because the answers are always within us. But sometimes you just need the right question to unlock it, don't you? To really bring that. That was a person asked that killer question, and you're like, oh, thanks for that. But it is gonna it is the one that's going to really help you to get the knowledge you need to your point, as you eloquently put, to be intentional, to make a conscious choice, because I think we make a lot of unconscious choice, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. I will tell you, I went through well over a decade of my life. And now when I look back at it, I was like, I was just kind of rolling along, like not really being intentional and not really being in the driver's seat of making those good decisions along the way, simply because I didn't know any better. And that's okay, right? It's perfectly okay. When we know better, we do better. So it's not about going back and going, oh man, I should have known better back then. It's about saying, you know what, I appreciate the journey, because now that I am where I am, I can make a better decision, going forward.
Oh, I love that. I often say that, life only really makes sense in the rearview mirror. You kind of look back and go, that's why that happened and that happened, because it brought me this. It brought me this experience, or it brought me these people, or it brought me this lesson that I needed to learn on my journey to add value to the world, to be a creator, because we're all here to create a something, can't we?
100%. I love the way you put that. Yes.
So, I mean, this, as you say, it really is, it is the journey, isn't it? I mean, we worry about the destination, but the reality is it's the journey that's the gift. And so for people to find their true talent and to really own it, to your point, there's lots of elements that need to be looked at, aren't there? Lots of things where if you did it in one big thing, you're right, people would be overwhelmed and go, oh my goodness, I'm not going to start. That sounds like too much work. But actually breaking it down into those bite-sized pieces that are less intimidating, I guess, it is kind of how you help people, isn't it?
Absolutely. Oh, there's two things that I have to highlight about what you just said, because there's so much gold in what you said in the last 30 seconds. One is that the journey, right? So being able to just have joy and seek the joy in the journey. It's not about figuring out this great, getting to this great level of clarity or figuring out all the pieces, and then you get to start to enjoy life or enjoy your career, whatever it is. But it's about just being curious and staying in that space of curiosity and saying, okay, how can I just embrace and enjoy where I am right now while I'm taking those steps to get me, to that next step. So I love that you mentioned that, because that is such an important piece of this. And, it will probably make a little bit more sense as you go. And you, like you said, you look in that rearview mirror and, things will start to come together, but not to put too much pressure, because I think the minute we start to do that, we lose out on the beauty and the joy and the blessing that is today and what we have in front of us right now. So yeah, that's so true.
I love that. And I love what you said earlier as well about that whole not beating yourself up when you now know better, to go, oh, well, I should have done better. That we didn't know then. Be grateful that you've got the lesson now, and therefore you can now make better decisions moving forward. But I think sometimes we can get ourselves stuck in looking back at our past, can't we? And going, but if I'd known it then, could have done better, instead of looking to our future and going, but where I've been doesn't need me anymore. Where I'm going is kind of what
that's good.
And so I really need to be. I've used that kind of phrase. The past no longer needs you, and the future isn't promised. That's why the here and now is called the present, because it's your gift. And once you get into that and go, actually, I shouldn't be losing today's gift by wasting too much time on yesterday or wasting too much worry on tomorrow, because that's when you're not able to see the joy of today, are you? The joy in the little things that that actually do fill your soul.
Yes, that's 100% right. And there's so much of stress and anxiety that gets caused, right? And stress and anxiety, like that worry and that anxiety and all of that, comes from either reflecting on our past and that cycle of replay and regret, or looking to the future and being anxious for the things that haven't even happened yet, right? Being worried about things that may or may not ever happen. And so, yes, I love that you call that out, because it is so important to be present. Yes, we can have goals, we can aspire to different things and all of that in the future, but also recognizing that you don't want to put so much of your focus on the future that you miss out on. And also your present is going to get you to that future, right? And the more that you focus on what it is that you're here to provide or learn, what lesson you're here to learn today, or what is the gift in today, like just being grateful for where you are around, the people that are surrounding you, that is actually going to help you to get that clarity and help you to move in that direction. The more you embrace the future and start to say, okay, how can I live this day to the best of my ability? That is absolutely going to help you along the path of where you should be going in the future.
I love that. What a great question. One of the things me and my little girl do every day is we sit down at the end of the day and say, what are the things we're grateful for from today? Because actually it makes you realize you might have had bad things happen in the day, but it hasn't been a bad day. It's had bad elements to it, but it's had really positive elements to it. And you can't help but smile when you think about something that you're actually grateful for. And then it's much harder, isn't it, to be miserable when you've been smiling. It's really, I had somebody on an interview once who said he used to make people, when they were talking about a problem, he'd make them laugh and then tell them to like really make them laugh till they were like, and then ask them to talk about the problem. And all of a sudden the problem's not so big anymore, because it's really hard to.
That's incredible. I love that. Yes.
That miserable state where actually you've just had a good old belly laugh and you're in a heightened state, which allows you to see more opportunity, doesn't it? And less problems.
Oh, 100%. That is so good. And one of the practical ways we do that in our coaching sessions is starting with celebration, even if, because a lot of times, people are going from, or we all, I do this too, go from one challenge to another, right? So it's like, oh, what's the next thing that I have to address? What's the next thing? That we forget to take a moment to pause and say, wait a second, how do I just enjoy this moment? What can I be grateful for? Or how do I, just get more joy out of this moment? Maybe it's listening to a song or taking a little bit of a break before you jump right into the next thing. And so a lot of times when people come into a conversation, the nature of coaching is that they're there for a purpose, right? They're there to either, they need help to overcome a challenge, or there's something they're struggling with, or something they want to do. And so when they come in, their minds are so filled with, okay, this is what I need to accomplish here, that they forget to say, wait a second, let me take a pause. And so we do that intentionally in the coaching sessions at the beginning to say, what are 3 things we're celebrating? Like, what can I help you celebrate today? And all of a sudden it's like, wait, what? Like I need a moment to process and think. But when you start from that space, there is so much power in what comes afterwards. You're absolutely right. It opens up the opportunity for for so much better problem solving or discussion or whatever is going to come next. It just opens up those options incredibly when you start from a place of joy. So seeking that joy and, oh, you know what, I actually do get to celebrate things that have happened, or even who you are. Like I always tell my clients, it's not about what you do. We're not here to celebrate, oh, tell me the 10 things that you've accomplished. But it's about, what have you even seen in the world? What are you celebrating? It could be celebrating going for a walk and enjoying nature, or, whatever it is. It could be anything. But just making sure that you're intentional with where you put that focus, because that is going to dictate what comes after. That's going to give you either a fantastic experience of whatever it is that you're trying to do, or it's going to, it might hold you back a little bit from what you're actually trying to accomplish.
I love that. It really does change that focus place, doesn't it? By taking that moment, and very often we forget to do that because we're busy, like you say. We've got a to-do list longer than we are full, and we're driven by ticking that next thing off instead of taking that moment to go, look how far I've come, rather than look how much further I've got to go. And it's getting that imbalance, isn't it? Which is kind of what you're helping people to do, with really becoming very intentional and curious. And I love that. I think curiosity is such an underplayed skill. As children, we are curious and filled with wonder, and everything is it's just exciting. And then we learn curiosity killed the cat, and therefore we're best not curious.
Right.
That'd be awful. Let's not do that. And so we become very wedded to being right, and less curious about learning stuff and going, well, okay, one of the things I try and ask myself every day is like, why am I so convinced I'm right, and why am I so convinced you're wrong, and what can you see that I can't see, that maybe if I were just a little bit more open-minded, I could see a broader spectrum of things. So I love that you're helping people be curious about themselves as well as others.
Yes, and I love that question. That's such a beautiful question to ask as you go through the day, because it's very easy for us, right, to make assumptions. I know I do this, and I've got to watch myself on making assumptions in certain situations and assuming that I'm right, and assuming things that, the intentions of other people, different things like that. But when you take a step back and ask the right question, and that's such a powerful question to ask, then it just, again, it helps you come back to, oh, okay, so maybe I'm not right, or maybe there was a different way that I could have looked at the situation, right? Or maybe I I can learn something from this other person, rather than kind of, judging that and then making a comparison, or actually making yourself right in those kinds of situations. So love that. Yeah, that curiosity is a big component of that. When you can pause long enough to be curious, it can really changes relationships, right? Because when you can do that, it can really just shift how all of those other things play out.
It's so true. I mean, often when we're curious, we can resolve all conflict, because the conflict comes usually through misunderstanding or misinformation. So once we become more curious, we can pull that together. I literally could chat to you all day, but I'm conscious of time, and there's still so many things that I would like to touch on. But I guess one of them, because I know so many people asked me about this when I did mine, is the TEDx piece, because it's quite an experience, isn't it, TEDx?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So I know when I first started getting involved in the run up to mine, I was so unaware, I'm ashamed to say, of just how big a piece it is. I kind of got accepted and thought, you turn up and you're going to do your speech, and it's not that at all. So you've got all of this training and making sure that actually you are delivering something that is going to be impactful, and that it's going to forward the debate, or kind of continue it in some way. So can you tell me a little bit more about like your TEDx, and also being a TEDx coach? I mean, that must be really interesting.
Yeah, so that experience, I think the easiest, or it's not even easy to kind of explain what that what that whole experience is. I'm sure you can relate to that. It's hard to put it into words, but it was like exciting and terrifying. All at the same time, and it was a roller coaster leading up to it, because when you talk about being on the TED stage and having that opportunity to speak and all that, most people are very familiar with the brand and TED and all what that stands for, and so it can be a little bit intimidating. And so when people were talking to me, like during that journey and running up to the talk, when people would say, "Oh my goodness, you're doing a TED talk," of course, rather than me being excited about it, I would go into, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing?" That kind of thing. And of course, the TEDx process, or the TED process, in terms of that running up to the actual talk, there's a lot involved in that, right? So there's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of things that you have to know in order to take that stage and be the most effective and align with what they're trying to accomplish, and different things like that. So it was a fun experience on the one hand, but on the other hand, especially as an introvert, I had to, oh my goodness, I really had to overcome a lot and get over myself in order to go through that process. But again, that was definitely part of my faith walk too. I feel like God was leading me to that, because it was a message that needed to be shared, and so I was obedient in that. And honestly, I think that's a lot of what kind of carried me through that process. But I have to give a shout out to my TEDx coach, because without her it would have been a lot more difficult. So I went through a 6-month coaching process. So they assigned me a coach at first to go through that process, and to help me to refine my my talk and different things like that, and help me to, even when like presentation skills, all those different things. And I really appreciated that I had that support. Then after the fact, they asked me to be a coach for these speakers, and so for some of these speakers, and so that was an absolute honor to be asked to to do that, and to kind of give back in that same way. So that's a really fun experience for me. I love that.
Oh, fabulous. And yet you're right, it is quite the experience, isn't it? I definitely resonate with that equal joy and terror element. That rings very true. But it's a great privilege to be able to be given a story to share that hopefully will help somebody else who's facing a similar experience, or needs a similar learning, that hopefully they don't have to go through the same challenge as you did to get the lesson.
Exactly. And that's what I kept thinking, as I was preparing for that, is that even if it just helps one person, I'm going to be okay with that. I'm going to be able to get over myself so that I can get on that stage and deliver the message. And even if it helps one person, it's worth it.
Oh, I love that. Sharissa, I can't believe we've come to the end, because it feels like it's been a couple of minutes. It's flown so lovely.
I know, yeah.
But you've already shared such amazing insight. Could I ask you, if you had to go back and ask your younger self, a piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, first of all, I would give my younger self a hug, because that girl was so hard on herself. Not that I'm still, not working through some of that, but I think I spend so much time as young child, and then even going into, teenage years and then adulthood, just comparing myself constantly. I think maybe we all do this to some degree, but I think I was a lot harsher on myself than I needed to be, and that really ate away at my self-confidence and things like that. So first of all, I would tell her or me at my younger age, it's going to be okay. You are perfect the way you are. You have everything that you need to fulfill the purpose that God has for you, and He's going to be with you every step of the way. There's absolutely nothing to worry about.
Oh, I love that, because I think we are, we can be our worst critic, can't we? Mm-hmm. And yet the only person that wherever we go, we are. We can't outrun ourselves. So
right, yeah.
Trying to find that way of actually at least liking ourselves, things we can't get rid of ourselves, is such a vital thing, isn't it? That ability to kind of do that. So, Sharissa, can you share with us how people can get in touch with you and who you help?
Absolutely. So my focus is on introverted servant leaders, specifically women who are in the corporate workplace. So you work for, a company, and you're just trying to navigate that whole space. But also, and a big component of the coaching is how to basically balance work and life, right? And not let your work and everything that is associated with that really take over your life and impact how your life outside of work. So if you're curious about that and you're wondering, okay, how do I really just function at that highest version, as the highest version of myself, have that impact and influence that I really want to have, just give back and be able to add value without burning myself out, then we are happy to help. And you can find out more on our website at leadershipmasteryalliance.com. And actually right now I'm taking on just 2 more. So I've got so much on my plate right now. So I'm taking on just 2 more like one-on-one clients for the rest of the year. And so if anyone is interested in working with us and going through what we were talking about earlier, as far as that, I basically just doing that identity work and getting really clear on who you are so you can really thrive, then I'm happy to support you through that and help you discover your leadership zone of genius. So thank you again, Kim. It's been such a pleasure and honor to chat with you today.
Oh, amazing. Sharissa, it's been an absolute joy. Thank you so very much for coming and sharing your journey and your insight and the lessons that life has gifted you with us. So thank you for being so kind as to do that. And Absolutely. To everybody listening and watching, I hope you found today's episode to be as inspiring, insightful, and piqued your curiosity as much as I have. Until next time, take care.